Hello brilliant learners. Hand-waving welcome back to our Cambridge Primary Checkpoint revision lesson. Today we're learning all about a property of material. Get ready. This is going to be fun, simple, and super easy to remember. By the end of this video, you should be able to checkmark explain what makes something a substance. Checkmark tell the difference between boiling and evaporation using particle ideas. Checkmark remember important properties of materials. Every substance has unique characteristics that make it different from others. These characteristics are called properties. Let's begin with two important changes of state: boiling and evaporation. The boiling point is the temperature at which a liquid changes into a gas. Boiling happens when a liquid is heated until it reaches this temperature. Evaporation, on the other hand, is when a liquid turns into a gas at any temperature. Although both involve liquids changing to gas, they are not the same process. In this lesson, we're going to explore a very important process called evaporation. Let's take a closer look at the mode and see what happens to particles when a liquid evaporates. Inside every liquid, the particles are always moving. Some move slowly, and some move much faster. The faster particles have more energy. Evaporation begins at the surface of the liquid. Here, some particles gain enough energy to break away from the liquid and escape into the air as gas. This is what we call evaporation. As these high-energy particles escape, they move in the same directions, leaving the surface one by one, with no bubbles forming inside the liquid. Another important fact is that evaporation can happen at any temperature. The liquid does not need to be hot. Even a puddle of water can evaporate on a cool day because some particles always have enough energy to escape. So remember, evaporation happens at the surface. It can occur at any temperature. Particles are moving in the same direction particles escape from the surface of the liquid. Now that we've explored evaporation, let's take a closer look at boiling, because these two processes are often compared. When we observe the particle model of boiling, we notice that the particles are moving rapidly in different directions, just like in evaporation. However, boiling has some important features that make it very different. During boiling, bubbles form within the liquid. These bubbles are filled with gas created when particles inside the liquid gain enough energy to break free from their bonds. These gas bubbles rise to the surface and escape into the air. This means that boiling does not only happen at the surface. Instead, it takes place throughout the entire liquid, from the bottom to the top. Another key point is that boiling happens only at a specific temperature, known as the boiling point. For example, pure water boils at 100 degrees Celsius at standard atmospheric pressure. So, in summary, particles move rapidly in all directions. Bubbles form inside the liquid. Particles escape from beneath the surface as well as the top. Boiling occurs throughout the liquid, and it only happens at a fixed temperature. Differences between boiling and evaporation, particle model. Thank you for your time so far. Now, let's look at how questions on this topic usually appear in the Cambridge Checkpoint examination. A common question is, state two differences between boiling and evaporation. To help you prepare effectively for your revision, I have organized the differences in two ways: differences based on the particle model, and differences based on what we observed during the processes. For this part of the lesson, we will focus on the particle model differences. Differences using the particle model. 1. Direction and energy of particles in boiling. Particles move rapidly in all directions because they have gained a large amount of energy throughout the liquid. In evaporation, particles also gain energy, but the ones that escape are mainly moving away from the surface. The movement appears more orderly because only the high-energy particles at the surface escape. Point 2. Where the particles escape from in boiling, particles escape from beneath the surface as well as the top. This is why bubbles form throughout the liquid. In evaporation, particles escape only from the surface of the liquid, which is why no bubbles are formed. Narration script. Observable differences between boiling and evaporation. Now we are almost finished with our comparison of boiling and evaporation. Earlier, we looked at the differences based on the particle model. This time, we will compare the two processes based on what we can observe. Let's look at the observable differences one by one. 1. Temperature at which they occur. Boiling happens only at a specific temperature, known as the boiling point. For example, Pure water boils at 100 degrees Celsius at standard atmospheric pressure. Evaporation, on the other hand, can happen at any temperature. The liquid does not need to reach its boiling point for evaporation to occur. 2. Where the process takes place. Boiling takes place throughout the entire liquid, from the bottom to the top. This is why you see activity inside the liquid, not just at the surface. Evaporation only happens at the surface of the liquid. Even when the rest of the liquid is calm, particles at the surface can escape into the air. 3. Presence of bubbles. In boiling, bubbles form within the liquid. These bubbles contain gas formed when particles deep inside the liquid gain enough energy to escape. In evaporation, no bubbles form in the liquid. It is a slow, surface-level process, so the liquid appears still even while evaporation is happening. These observable differences are important because exam questions often ask learners to identify or explain them. Understanding both the particle model and the visible differences makes it easier to answer checkpoint questions confidently. Great job, superstar learners! Glowing star, you've just completed your Cambridge primary checkpoint revision on the difference between boiling and evaporation. Don't forget to subscribe, tap the notification bell, and comment below what topic you want next. See you in our next revision lesson. Keep shining and keep learning.